Alana, Gary, I gotta close this. How's it going?
Good. So we are live now. We are also recording, I do believe.
I'm just gonna get started here in a second.
Oh, okay.
I had to close the window. A little noisy. And we are recording.
All right. And in 10 seconds, it will be 7 p.m. So we'll give that last few seconds for anyone who's left getting on the line.
Alana and Gary are both on the phone.
Great, thank you. All right, it is 7 p.m., so we can call this meeting to order. I will look for a mover and seconder on the agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Saladki, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any changes or additions to the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
So moved, thank you. Item number 3, declaration of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest. Do we have any conflict this evening? I am seeing none, thank you. Delegations, presentations, or petitions. We did have Constable Leduc and Acting Detachment Commander Jean-Vin here on Monday night. I do not believe there were any follow-ups from that presentation. So if there's nothing further on the RCMP report, we can move on to the next item. Was there anything? Seeing none again, thank you. Public question period. We do not have anything this evening. So on to adoption of the minutes of the June 24th, 2020 council meeting. And I see that Councillor Barlick has joined us now. So look for a mover of the minutes, please. Moved by Councillor Salatki, seconded by Councillor Loreen. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none. All in favor?
Yes.
So moved, thank you. On to 7, the action items list. Were there any further questions or follow-ups from Monday? I don't believe so. Councillor McDonald or Deputy Mayor McDonald?
Thank you, Rosa. So I would like to talk about the item in regards to the sign again, if you don't mind. I have a few questions and some stuff's come to light. Councillor Barlick made a very important statement on Monday, and that was that we are to be financially responsible in this community for taxpayers' dollars. And so I don't know if it was through misreading or completely missing the section. I was under the impression that this sign was originally being done by a grant that was given to the town or earned by the town, and not that it was a capital planning project. So I do have a concern, along with a lot of constituents, not just online, but in person, who've made phone calls. I've reached out to several people, and the concern is that we're spending $300,000 on a sign that we don't have the public buy-in on. There's several concerns about the design, the placement, the look, the feel, the buy-in from the community. And I think our constituents have spoken loud and clear to the majority of us how they feel about this sign. As much as I don't really want to go back to the drawing board, I feel in this case that it is something that we probably should do. It's a lot of money. And if we continue with this and the sign goes up, if we have the negativity that we did when it was first announced through the media, it won't be the community sign that we are hoping it will be. I think as a council, we have made a mistake with this, and we need to cut our losses and start again. And although I appreciate the effort the administration has already put into this following our direction, it's something that we really need to take a step back and say, whoa, we don't have the public buy-in. It's a lot of money. We live in an economically depressed time. COVID has added a whole new layer to what we're dealing with. We have people that won't be able to afford to heat their homes. We have people that can't, as per the food drive that was just done, feed themselves. And we're going to spend $300,000 of taxpayers' money on a sign. Concerns me greatly as an elected official. And those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Deputy Mayor McDonald. Councillor Selecki?
I agree. I know that there's a
concern of us taking things off of Facebook as, you know, this isn't the proper channel of getting letters or sending an email or making a phone call, but it's the reality of how people voice their opinions. And yes, maybe some of it got out of control. And I agree with Deputy Mayor McDonald that the behavior towards staff was inappropriate, but seems to be only two sides of this. Either people don't care or people really, really care. And $300,000, I agree. I must have misunderstood that. I also thought this was a grant and that we were on a timeline because we were going to lose money on something. We are going to lose money. We're going to lose our taxpayers' money. And it's something that they have given us as something to take care of. And I know that we were called out once by someone in the community who also is an employee, but as a community member, saying that we were yesing things or not paying enough attention or doing enough detailed research. And in this case, I think that there's been a ton of research, there's been a ton of work done, don't get me wrong. But I think in this case, the backlash afterwards, if we continue to move forward and spend another 220,000, which I believe is what we still have to spend, we're making a mistake, especially during a pandemic. When we first started with this, it was a very different climate. It was very different times. We had tourists coming. We don't have any tourists on their way here right now, not from outside of the territory. We have time. So again, I think that what Deputy Mayor McDonald has said is valid, perhaps even just stepping back for 4 weeks and giving an opportunity for a few more public engagement sessions. People maybe weren't paying attention before. They're definitely paying attention now. I don't know how it would look if we had public engagement sessions at this point in time, but I really think, especially from the letter that we did receive from the Great Northern Arts Festival this week, I think that maybe there's an opportunity to keep some of that money here in our own community, that we really need to do a little bit of extra footwork and see if we can keep it here, because people are speaking up now, whether it's not too late yet. The sign's not up. We have time. It doesn't mean we can't still go with Fathom, but I really think that, yes, we should pay the money that we owe so far to the people who've done the work, but we also potentially could be looking at other options here.
Thank you, Councillor Salaki. SAO Hood, did you want to just touch on what the budget is for this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kulikowski. I'm not too sure where the 300,000 is coming from. Somebody's got their, I'm getting an echo, but I just want to remind the council that in the budget.
I'm on mute, so
I'm not too sure where that's coming from.
try again.
Okay, that sounds better.
Sorry.
So I'm not too sure, thank you for the time to speak on this. I'm not too sure where the $300,000 is coming from. The budget for the whole project was 200,000, of which majority of that money is going to be spent through local industries, probably even the installation. There was a bunch of road work that had to be done, which is about 60,000. There was a reserve set aside, and if council recalls, in the capital budget, there was a reserve for the whole amount that's been set aside in previous years for this. So the effect of this year on the financials is a net zero, in that money has been earned and has been put away already in previous years for the project. I'm just explaining on the financial side of it. And so I'm not too sure where the confusion was on, maybe a little bit on that, but the original project budget was 200,000. We spent about $60,000 on last year on the road work for that access area. And the rest is with the design, fabrication, everything is in the current fiscal budget, for which, as I mentioned, we had a reserve set aside from previous years for it, specifically for that project.
Thank you, SAO Hood. Councillor Salaki?
So if we don't spend that money, what can that be used on? Can it be repurposed for another reason within our community? If it's money that's not coming from a grant and it's coming from our own, we've set it aside, could we not be using it for something else?
I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I would say what is left on that is probably maybe around $75,000 is what you would potentially save. because that is really over all the budget that we had for the fabrication and installation was $75,000. The rest of it, a lot of it was for the road work, as I said, and some of it, the Fathom. And it was quite clear when we met with Fathom that as to, based on their RFP response and that, then we had a specific amount for the actual installation and fabrication.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead, Alana.
If we don't go ahead with this, are we going to lose any money? Do we have to go ahead and pay thousands, or we're not at that point of commitment yet?
No, we would have to pay them completely out on the contract. We have a written contract with them.
Okay, so we'd be paying them the rest of the money to not finish versus finishing.
Correct. Although their portion of the contract and most of the money that is owed to them has already been expended. Their portion of this project is basically coming to an end soon, because then it becomes the installation and the fabrication of the actual sign.
And who's actually doing that work? Is that where you're saying local contractor?
Well, there was a bid went out, the tender went out for the fabrication and installation. And we're just, as I mentioned on Monday, we received bids on it. I have not seen the bids personally, but they were a little higher than what we thought, and that's why we're working on looking at what we can do there.
Okay, because it is concerning that so many people don't like it. I'm not really clear on where that is coming from, since it clearly was a long consultation process. And I don't know if this is something where people don't like it now and would like it once it's installed, but I'm not sure we're hearing from anybody. We're definitely hearing from people who aren't happy, but I don't know if the silent majority just is because one, they don't care, or two, they like it. Is there any way we can cut that out of there?
If I may suggest to council, is I will go back and do just, like I say, I don't have the actual numbers on me right now. Give a breakdown of where our expenses have gone and what the financial impact, give the options of the different impact of that.
Mr. Hunt, I submitted council and yourself piece of paper with those numbers are. I sent them to Mayor and council.
Well, sorry, Jackie, we can't understand what you're saying. Grant, can you maybe mute your mic and then we'll ask Jackie to speak again? Jackie, if you want to go ahead.
Sorry. So again, this has been in the capital budget approved by council 2015, 2016, 2017, 18, and 19. The total amount is 200,000. Approximate breakdown of that is, of that 200,000, 100,000 is for the fabrication and installation. I'd say 80% went to design, about 20% to site prep of that first 100,000. The second 100,000 is still on the table. The other has already been expended. The approximate 100,000 of that 200,000 has been expended in both design and site prep. The 100,000 that remains is for installation and fabrication of the sign. That is the tender that recently closed. That is the tender that SEO Hood is referring to that came in over budget. That is the tender that currently our administration and staff are reviewing with the designers, going over with a short list of bidders to look and see what may be able to be adjusted, or if they're able to come in under and reach the approximate cost of 100,000, and that's where it stands, and that's the amount.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Grant, if you could just turn your mic back on. I'm not sure if Alana has anything further there.
No, I don't. That helps. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Salaki?
After looking at the gateway sign and our culture email that we all received, I don't know what I'm allowed to say about it, but the one point that stuck out is this is a 50-year legacy project. This is something that's going to be around for a very long time. And as Deputy Mayor McDonald has said, there's a possibility that we've made a mistake. And that might mean eating some of that cost. And I think that putting a pin in actually going forward for a couple of weeks and offering a couple of opportunities, two things could happen. One, we could come back with something that's incredible because now people have seen what this is going to be and what this really means and taking it seriously, or people will say nothing and we will move forward with the plan as it is. But I think that for us to not slow down a little bit, as someone who came from a late night of something being destroyed in this community because people didn't see enough value in it or didn't understand what it meant. I don't want to put a sign up and have it vandalized and destroyed 1 week after we spend $200,000 on it because people hate it and they're upset that we didn't listen to them. I would rather we can say with our heads held high in a month, we did our due diligence, we stood back, we heard you, we listened to you. This is what we're going forward with because the vote was clear that people did choose this sign over anything else. And take that extra month before we put a sign up. As I said, there are no tourists coming right now. We should be able to take a couple of extra weeks to make that choice.
Thank you. I would just like to point out that the design work and the fabric or the materials that are being discussed for the current sign as it stands were chosen for things like vandalism because they are not, they're cleanable. They have that lifetime on them. And I mean, I'm just going to inject my own personal opinion here. This sign is a showstopper. It's beautiful. Not everyone agrees with that. Not everyone thought the Eiffel Tower was cool. Not everyone thought, you know, like how many things out, the Sydney Opera House, how many things out there were thought to be way too out there when they were created, and now they're showstoppers. I think that Inuvik has a real opportunity with this beautiful, long-lasting sign to have something that people say, I saw the coolest thing when I was up there, and it wasn't your basic small town wooden sign that, you know, has people etching their names into it and whatever else. They have this beautiful piece up there. It's got Indigenous languages on it. It's got this thing called a Delta braid, which I know what it is now because I've been up there. Like, I'm sorry to inject my personal opinion here, but I think that the sign design that we have going right now is phenomenal and it is unique, just like Inuvik is. So, I mean, I'll stand by whatever council's decision is, of course. We are a team, we come together to make these decisions, but I just needed to say that because I think that it's an opportunity and it is a piece of beauty that we'll have in the Delta. So. Councillor Salatki.
Mayor Kulikowski, I agree with you. I actually think the sign is beautiful too. I don't have a problem with the sign personally. And so that's why I think it's really important because I am someone who, I asked those questions of Jackie and we went through all of these things and I get it. I understand where you're coming from. I also think when it's done, people will really love it. But it's more the case that people are so upset about it right now that I think, even though I personally think at the end of the day, when people have an opportunity to come together and have this discussion again and be more involved in the conversation, maybe we'll change their minds and maybe people see it and say, oh, okay, now I understand why we went with this. Now I understand why we're moving forward. But right now, all they're hearing is council isn't listening. We didn't get a chance. And maybe we have a chance to prove them wrong. And I think that it's up to us to make them see it the way we see it. I think it's great. I think we should move forward. But I also think that as a counselor, it's not just about my own personal opinion. It's about the 20 or 30 people that have bothered to reach out to me and say, I hate this. I hate the process. I don't like what you're doing, and go forward from there. When we were looking at the cannabis regulations, we had a meeting and nobody showed up. And so we thought nobody cared and we made decisions. And then it turned out people really did care. And we had to come back and say, let's look at this again. And I think that's where we're at, is that we need to say, let's look at this again. Whatever the decision is, whether it's one that we come back to the exact same one or we move forward in a different direction.
My only response to that would be that I hear you, the 20 to 30 people who've reached out now, but I don't think that we want to disuse the 60 to 200 people who gave their opinions during consultation. to the 20 to 30 who have been vocal in social media. We did our due diligence as a town. We did multiple areas, multiple call outs for people to come and give their ideas and their opinions on things. And we cannot discredit that those people did come and do that. Yes, of course, people are being vocal right now. And I mean, we've all seen it in the last couple of weeks, but I really think that responding to that vocal minority who only respond negatively most of the time is not the best way for us to move forward with this type of project that has been on the books already for 5 years. That are not on the books, but planned to be on the books for 5 years. So I'll leave it there.
I think it's really good to have this discussion, whether we agree on it or not. I think this is the kind of discussion we need to have, and that we need to see where everyone's coming from and why we're making the decisions. And it's not just, yes, I agree, no, I don't agree. I think that this is fruitful, whichever we decide, if we decide to bring it back to a vote or not, because I think a lot of the impression is that we are just yesing people or saying no based on what is easiest. And so this is a difficult conversation. It's an annoying conversation. I should clarify, when I say the 20 to 30 people, I'm not talking about rant and rave. I'm talking about the 20 or 30 people who've taken the time to speak to me individually. And I know that other counselors have had people speak to them as well. I am not talking about Facebook. I'm talking about actual conversations, phone calls, emails, things like that, that people have come forward. And some of them have said, I support the sign, I support the process. And some have said no. So it's both sides of that.
Thank you for clarifying.
Des here. What's up? Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, you know, we could say this till we're blue in the face. You know, I think we definitely did our. I think the town put enough notice out there, but what we're hearing right now is that it wasn't enough. So I'll agree with Deputy Mayor McDonald and Councillor Salaki, and say that I'm okay with opening this up again and to delay this to open it back up to a public and, you know, public input, see what people want to do with it. And like you said, it could just come back and nobody has any real changes to it, or they have some input and we go back to it. However we play it, I think that's what we have to do, is because the public has made their voice heard, whether they be the minority or not. I think that's our job, is to make sure that we're doing our job properly. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wood?
I'm going to agree with Mayor Kulikowski on this one. I like a sign myself, and being an older person, maybe that's strange because it is new and different. Having said that, I think the town has also gone above and beyond on our due diligence on this one. If you look at the timeline that was presented to all of us, there was ample time for people to put their thoughts together, to protest or to support the decision we made. I don't know how much more we could have done, to be quite honest. It was on Facebook, it was on our website, it was on the rolling channel, CBC, we had posters around town. This goes back to 2015, for God's sake. How much longer are we going to sit here and do nothing with it? We put roughly $140,000 into this on a $200,000 budget, not a $300,000 one. Personally, I think we should go ahead. And yes, maybe there are some people against it, but there's also a lot who support it. I think we've done everything we possibly could do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Barlock?
Thank you. I will also disagree with Deputy Mayor McDonald. I do not believe it's time to go back and do some of these things over again. That's a huge waste of resources and time. We've had more than enough time to deal with this. I'm not sure where the confusion lied that this was a capital budget expenditure. We've approved 2 budgets under this council with that item in that budget. So, and we approved it in 2 budgets before this council started as well. So I think we're too far down the line. I think we do have a beautiful and unique sign. I think people will come around to like it a lot more, especially once they learn a lot more about the design elements in it and what they all mean. I did attend a public session just to listen, and from the 25 or so people that were there, I believe the sign incorporates a lot of the elements that they suggested at that meeting with respect to the Mackenzie River, The Aurora was a big thing during that meeting. The wildlife, the culture, the Delta Braid was a big thing. They wanted incorporation of local materials, which I think was definitely considered. Whether they can make that, but again, as the mayor alluded to, there were a lot of considerations too about potential for vandalism and things like that. I think in some cases people are getting hung up on the picture in the proof, which is not how the sign is going to look ultimately in location at the end. You have to consider it how it's been talked about being designed. It's going to be elevated up high. There's going to be an elevated platform for viewing and for picture taking. There's opportunities to take pictures on both sides of the sign. This is going to be a huge boon for Inuvik. And I think a lot of people are stuck on the trees and the goofy things that were in the picture that was presented, which showed the sign, but had all this other stuff that's not really about Inuvik in there. But we did more than I would say most organizations do when they're doing these kinds of things with respect to reaching out to people. There was ample time. I would hate to see us waste all this money for exactly the reasons Deputy Mayor McDonald said. We are in a pandemic. We're in a depressed economy. We're going to potentially lose this thing and delay it for another year or whatever if we go out to social media and bow down to pressure over a decision that we all made collectively, knowing full well with all the opportunities for ourselves to ask questions, including a lot of the same questions that the public are asking now. We asked those same questions in our council meetings when we had the presentations and the updates on it. And I am very comfortable at this point proceeding with the sign as we've got it and continuing on this process to get it completed. Let's get an opportunity to get a few people hired locally to do the installation come this calendar year. And let's get the thing done. I think people will really come around to it once it's there. And there may still be people who don't like it, but there's always going to be people who don't like decisions that councils make all across the country. And I'm sure there's a lot of towns and villages where there's a lot of people who don't like their signs, but they're still there. And I think ours is unique. It is very beautiful. I think it's going to be a huge thing on social media for all the things, which is going to be a big word of mouth promotion for this town and make people want to come here, even just to get a picture in front of that sign. I know people like the old sign and the stuff that was in there, but that sign is delaminating. It is no longer salvageable. It is going to fall apart in the semi-near future. And there's nothing we're going to be able to do about that. We cannot save that old sign. We need something new. We've done the process. We have something in place that I think is going to work really well. And we've had the discussion about the placement of the sign as well. And we have been made to understand by administration that we had very limited options in where it could go. And they did their due diligence in looking at the placement of it as well, because there's not really much property around that's not already allocated to businesses and private owners. So as far as where it goes, there was not much option there either. So I know that some people may have concerns about that, but I think they don't fully understand the limited nature of where that sign could go. So I think a lot of this stuff has been talked about. It's been addressed. We've had the opportunity to ask questions in council. It's been put out to the public in a variety of media. So people who don't have emails or Facebooks or whatever could see it in the public posters. It was in the Drum. It was in the News North. It was posted in the bulletin boards. It was everywhere, including a number of calls reaching out specifically to individuals and organizations within the community who do represent a big chunk of this community. So, I mean, it is what it is at this point. I think if we subject ourselves to bowing down to public pressure on every single decision we've made that people don't like, we're going to be revisiting a lot of things. And I think we've done the due diligence. We have everything we need to back up the decision council's made. And I think it would be a big mistake to go back on this right now and a huge waste of money. So my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Barlick. Are there any further comments on this item?
Hi, it's Gary.
Go ahead, Gary. Grant, can you move the mic or the thing closer to the phone? It's just really hard to hear the folks on the phone.
Try that. Okay, can you hear me fine? Well, I'm going to assume you can hear me. I'm going to have to agree. We had the issue with the cannabis and we went back and revisited. So that's what we're seeing with what's been done with this sign. There was multiple consultations with the public, presentations. You know, it's way beyond in terms of the effort of trying to get community involvement in this. And now that we've reached the last few steps, suddenly people are saying they don't like it. Well, they've had their opportunity over probably the last 9 months to come forward and say something. And, you know, and like as Councillor Barlick was saying, we're far too far down this road to put it to stop and say, well, we're going to go back and revisit again, because we have to go back and revisit every decision we make after we've made the effort to talk to everybody. It's just going to slow us down to nothing. So I'm inclined to say, we've made the decision, let's go with the decision. Some people will like it, some people won't. But I mean, they've had their opportunity to speak and they chose not to at the time. So I'm saying go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McBride. So I guess the question then is, I think we'd have to go back and adjust the agenda, but is there a motion on the, does someone want to make a motion to change it? Do you feel the discussion has been thorough enough that you don't feel a motion is necessary? I guess, Paul, I'll go to you because you brought it forward this way.
Go ahead. Thank you. So we're good now. Sorry. All right. So I am prepared to make a motion. What I would like to do for the motion is make a motion that we take 4 weeks to reach back out to those stakeholders, because the media has done a thorough review. The information is now out there in full, and people can make an informed decision. But for us just to carte blanche, go forward and throw good money after good money at a sign that my constituents and our constituents have reached out and stated overwhelmingly they do not like this sign, it is prudent for us to take that course of action. So my motion is that we take a 4-week break to review and reach out to the former stakeholders in this sign prior to moving forward to ensure we are on the right track. It's called due diligence, and I would like to leave it at that.
And then, so just so I'm clear, if that's the motion, upon completion of the 4 weeks, how do we determine that it's a move forward or a not at that time? I guess I just want to have an idea of how we measure.
Well, the information that comes back from administration from reaching out to those stakeholders will tell us, should we actually be revisiting this entire issue or move forward as is? I'm asking for 4 weeks for something that's been in the works for 5 years. It's not a case of this has to be done by tomorrow because it's a government grant. This is our tax base money. This is our taxpayers who are paying this money for this sign. If they don't like it, when they can't afford to heat their homes, then we have made a huge mistake. And I don't want to go down that road. I'm asking for 4 weeks to reach out. Everyone is in town. Nobody is traveling. So it shouldn't be overly difficult to reach out and just confirm we are on the right track. But from what I've heard in this community over the last 2 weeks since those articles have been, and I'm not talking about Facebook, I'm talking about the constituents who have reached out, driven out to my warehouse to discuss this, called, emailed, texted. I think a 4-week period is fair. But it's a motion on the floor, so I leave it if there is a seconder or not.
Okay, so I will read what I've noted here. Well, maybe what we should do is move it to new business, which is item number 8, which is the next item down the line to be brought up. Or
Mayor Kulikowski, it says I would like to get some clarification on exactly what Deputy Mayor McDonald is asking for. Now we're going again after the 4 weeks. I'm thinking just strictly from an administration point of view, what it is we're looking for. Are we looking for a question of, do we start over? Is that what the public wants us to start over with? Or what it is that administration needs to, council look at, should the motion pass, what council is looking for from administration on this? Because I apologize, I'm not quite clear. Is it to read it? We want to go out and get input? Do we want to start over again? Or is it just on, because if we come back and ask just, do you like the sign or not? Or what exactly is it that, because the information that council would like administration to come back with, I guess, I just want to confirm.
No, that's more than fair. I would like administration to reach out to the stakeholders to confirm that the current iteration and sign that is proposed to be built is still in line with what they want. Pretty simple.
And by stakeholders, you just mean residents of Inuvik as opposed to specific stakeholder groups?
Residents of Inuvik and stakeholder groups. I'll put both in there.
Councillor Salaki?
There are obviously some things that we can't change. We can't change where it's going to go. It's already been, that has been prepared. The money's been spent to prepare that space, which that space looks quite nice and has done a lot for that entry point into Inuvik. But I think the 150 or so emails that went out prior that Jackie couldn't get any responses from, maybe she'll get some now, and trying to get some input. It would be really nice after 4 weeks if we were able to reconvene and have an honest discussion as to what people tell us that they've come back with. Or perhaps in this case of reaching out, we can say, we would like, if you have a design that you want to submit, obviously we don't have a budget to re-spend on a design, but this could be a case of and it was, I think it was again suggested in the email, of having a contest or a community involvement or collaboration of some sort that doesn't have to cost another $80,000 to design. There's potential there. So I think maybe it's just people's ideas are out there now that maybe something will come back. And again, maybe nothing will, and we'll just move forward as we are. But this gives people the opportunity to have their voices heard, and we need some constructive ideas. So I feel it needs to go slightly forward more than just, I like it or I don't like it. Here's an alternative idea, and here's a group that would put it together. Because if we have 4 weeks, there's a potential that a group that could come back and say, okay, we have this idea of what we want to design. We want to work through the ACTMC. We have these 6 artists that would like to work together to do it. Here's a concrete plan. At the end of 4 weeks, people go, yeah, we don't really care, or we don't really like it. Well, then we're going to have to move forward with the design we have, because nobody's actually put their hands up and said, I will do the work. I'm interested in the work. I'm interested in having my artwork out there. So I do agree there needs to be a specific timeline. There needs to be a specific, what are we looking for? And there needs to be a specific move forward point where we say, we did our best, we tried, you did not come back with anything that we could either add to the design or make something new for cheaper or for more representative of the community. And now we move forward with this design as we have done for this moving past where we're at right now.
Deputy or Councillor Barla?
Sorry, I'm getting confused now about what we're actually asking for. I thought we were just putting this out to residents to say, do you like it or not? Yes or no. If we're going to start inviting a whole bunch more design options to come in, I think you're opening yourself up to, again, a lot more expense and a lot more time, and this thing's just going to drag on for a long time. So I think we should be clear, if this motion does get passed, what exactly are we doing? I think there are other opportunities for stuff for local designers to do. I think we have Chief Jim Cooey Park redevelopment, which has a lot of opportunity to have art installations included in there somehow. There's a lot of other options we can do to appease and accommodate some of these other things that people have ideas about and maybe have missed opportunities for in the past. But what exactly are we doing with respect to the sign? Is this just a straw poll, yes or no, do you like it or not? And if the overwhelming answer we get back is no, what are we going to do? Start over again and spend another 200 grand to do all this over? I just want to be clear on what exactly we're voting on.
Thank you. So I'll put the question again to Deputy Mayor McDonald. What is the, what do we need? What is it that you want to see come of this? And I understand that you want people to be able to pay their bills this winter and that kind of thing, but how can we have a tangible, something to hold on to move forward with this if we do?
No, I agree. I'm not looking for a redesign at this point. I want to know from the community. Is this what you like? Does this work? Does this meet your expectations for what we're doing? That's what I want to know in the next 4 weeks. We need to make a decision here. I agree. I don't want to waste money that's already been spent. But if overwhelmingly it comes back, we don't like this sign, it doesn't represent us, then we do need to go back to the drawing board. And there are ways of doing signs cheaper than a concrete slab and metal poles. There's, I can't even begin to enumerate the number of signs that you could put up. They've done a beautiful one at the warming shelter. There are signs that can be done cheaper. So I want to know before we spend an additional $120,000 or $100,000 that fab and install, is this what the community wants? That's all I'm asking for.
It's Alana here. Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead, Alana.
If I heard Director Chalice correctly, and I'm not sure I did, was she saying that 200 people had previously given their input when the various consultations were held?
That was myself who made that statement. I don't know if it's in this package, but I know in my conversation with Director Chalice, there were between the in-person consultations, the one-on-one interviews, the emails received, and the online survey, somewhere, again, this is a large range, but between 60 and 200 people. Now, perhaps Jackie can give a tighter number than I was just able to give. But I do understand that our previous consultations did reach quite a few folks. So maybe I'll just invite Jackie to speak if she does have something to add there.
To my recollection, we had coming in and out of that community public consultation session upwards, we had 35 names. We had between 80 and 100 and something people pick up little chits that we had for the online survey, which when I say that, I mean, that means they stopped by the booth during Ganaf Craft Fair. So we actually probably saw more than that we spoke to. And then you have the people that completed the online survey. And then if you take also the people that were contacted through email, one-on-one interviews and the stakeholder, then you definitely would see that number again, 100, and that's where you're getting like those numbers, right? So emails sent to 150 different organizations, individuals, 35 plus at the public consultation, people on the online survey, and then I'd say 80 to at least 100 that we know passed by the booth that we had during the craft fair. And I think that's where you're getting those numbers from, or that's where we would get those numbers from.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So we're now proposing to basically do the same thing over again, to repeat what we've already done before. Is that what we're doing again?
May I maybe clarify? So
ahead.
the consultation, the consultation that was done was to get the ideas for the design of what people felt need to be incorporated into the design. And that's where the consultation came from. And from that, then Fathom had presented to council 3 different versions of different types of construction, different options of what it would look like, of which then council made their choice of from that. What Fathom did was in the design took into consideration the information that was passed on from the consultation.
Thank you, SAO Hood. Councillor Lorraine.
So what I've been hearing from people, what I've been reading online comments, is that people just feel like they weren't, that it's just not in line with the what they've said. Now we've done the consultations, we know what they want, we know the elements they want. It's just the arrangement isn't correct. Is there a way we could make this call out to be like a call out to any local artists or local input, just to how this could be better? Obviously people don't like it, or they wouldn't be saying anything, personally, I like it myself. You know what I mean? I wasn't too hot on it originally, but after looking at it in depth, I like it. I'm a fan of it, but it's our job to, listen to the community. And obviously the community, at least a small section of it, is very upset. So I think that if we narrow it down to just say, like, can we have any input on this, on how it could be different, given the pieces we already have here, because to go through the consultations again and to hear the same things, that we want animals, we want culture, and we want these things represented. We've already got those pieces. It's just about putting them together in a way that we can find that's more appealing, I guess. So I think that's what we owe it to the people, is to say, yeah, let's give them 4 more weeks. And if nobody comes up with any input, if we don't see any of the artists that were in the articles or that were interviewed, or any other artists at large, or any collective, then I say we just go ahead with it. And like it's been said, it's going to be polarizing, but it'll be ours. And I also think the Northern Lights are a good theme. I think they happen here. That's not just centralized to one community in the north. So I like the Northern Lights myself.
Again, Councillor Loreen, what you're suggesting there is basically inviting a redesign of the sign. If you're asking people to submit ideas for how to redo the design elements, we're redesigning the sign. And are we going to pay those people for submitting their designs? Like, what are we doing here?
Okay, Councillor Salaki, and then.
So thank you for some of the clarification on this. And I'm just actually looking at the FAQ that was sent out to us by Mayor Kulikowski. So there we can see right away where the skipped step is that the town is seeing. Who approved the design and when? We did. Those of us sitting at this table approved this design. So up until that point, we did everything right. We contacted all the Director Chalice, contacted all of the stakeholders, the community members. They had consultations to get those elements of the design. We want to see things written in these languages. We want to see these animals. We want to see this. We want to see that. We did all of those things right. And sitting at this table, I'm hearing all of us at this table say, I like it. I like it. It's great. But we didn't have that last step of saying, here's what it is. Here's what the elements are, how they go together. And just give that opportunity for that final step of their decision. So I would like to retract what I said about having another contest or a movement for a brand new sign, because you're right. We've done that work. We spent that money. There's a lot of great elements and things that have already been discussed with the community. So I apologize. I take that back a little bit. But the approval of the design was left up to all of us who have maybe not seen exactly what other people envisioned. So I think with Deputy Mayor McDonald is saying is basically a straw poll. Do you like this? Do you not like this? And the thing is, at the end of the day, if 60% of the people polled say yes, well, we did our due diligence. 60% of the people said yes, we're good to go. We move forward. If 90% of the people say no, and maybe it needs to be a higher percentage of besides 50-50, maybe it needs to be if at least, I don't know. I'm not a statistics person, but if we could find a number that said, this is the number we need to be able to pass it and be confident and say, okay, this many percentages said, okay, we move forward. But I just feel that some sort of vote of confidence. And I know, Councillor Barlick, what you're saying is that we don't want to do this on every issue, but this is not just an issue of a bylaw passed or changing something small. This is something that is going to represent our community, as you said, on social media, in photos, moving forward for a very long period of time. And so to do a quick, we took your design elements, we listened to what you said, here's how it went together. What harm is that going to do for us? Other than to say, we asked you, so you had your chance to say yes or no. And overwhelmingly, people said either yes, no, or I don't care.
The harm is if you get an overwhelming no, we don't like it. What are we going to do about it? Start the whole thing over again?
Yes,
we have made a decision based on the best information we had available. We've done due diligence as a council. I don't see why we feel we need to go back on our decision. We went forward with the information that we had based on the input that we got from all sides. And there was no one who can claim that this was not well advertised. We have all of it on record about what was put out there. I'm sorry, but I just feel that this is just too late. There's other opportunities for people to get things out in the community that we can look at as a council. But with respect to the sign, I think we just should go ahead. We've made a decision. I don't see any point in us going back on it now. And basically, if we get an overwhelming no, we hate this sign, we're just basically threw away $100,000 to be on the conservative side, maybe even more than that. Are people going to be happy with that then? Or we're going to go back and say, okay, we're going to allocate another $200,000 or $300,000 to this again? I don't know. People need to understand that if they don't like it and we have to go back to the drawing board, that's going to cost them money as taxpayers. And it's not going to be in an insignificant amount. So I think this is the wrong direction to go in. I think we've done everything we need to do, and I think it's time to go ahead. I don't think there's an overwhelming majority who don't like the sign. I think it's pretty much even at best or at worst.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Barlick. Deputy Mayor McDonald?
So I don't want to throw away money. That's very clear, very evident by my comments. That being said, I don't want to throw away additional money for something that people don't like. So why would I continue to add more money to a problem? At some point, you do cut your losses, and we're not losing everything. The construction of the site has already been done. So the site is prepped. So there's 60,000, I believe, that SAO Hood said was spent. So that has been done. So we're not losing that. So we stand to lose 30,000 at this point, and that was the cost of the Fathom expenditure, I believe. I could be wrong on my numbers I've written down here, but it doesn't mean we're going to lose it. As Councillor Solofsky said, we have brought in all of the stakeholders. We've asked what you wanted. So perhaps the way it has been arranged is not what the people want. What I'm asking for, and I remind you, there's a motion on the floor that hasn't been seconded, that I would like a straw poll of our Inuvik citizens and a hold over the next 4 weeks to confirm that this sign is what people want. And I agree, it does not have to be a vast majority, but I would like to see the input from our community prior to us making a decision. So I remind you, there's a motion on the floor.
Thank you. Just for clarification, the motion is not on the floor yet. We were still trying to figure out what was in the motion. So
I hereby make a motion that the town of Inuvik administration does a straw poll, that's what we want to call it, of our citizens on their input on the current iteration of the sign over the next 4 weeks and report back to council so we can make an informed decision going forward.
So that's moved by Councillor McDonald. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Loreen.
Sorry, can I ask for a friendly amendment on this? Since this is such a hot topic right now, do we really need 4 weeks? Can we not do it in 1 or 2 weeks? Everyone seems to have this on their mind right now, so I think we can get this done pretty rapidly if this motion succeeds.
Deputy Mayor McDonald, are you?
We both had our mic muted, so I wasn't able to hear what your amendment to the motion was. Could you repeat, please?
Oh, I just was requesting a friendly amendment, possibly, that since this is such a hot topic and it's on top of mind for so many people, do we really need 4 weeks to do this? Can we not get a straw poll done in like 1 week or even 2 weeks and get this thing done? If this motion succeeds, do we really need to have 4 weeks to do this?
I accept the friendly amendment to my motion to reduce it to 2 weeks.
Okay, so that motion was tabled by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Loreen. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Salaki?
I heard you say it was tabled by Deputy Mayor McDonald. Could you repeat that?
Yeah.
You said tabled?
Put on the table by,
Okay, sorry.
yeah. Okay. Okay, with that, I will call to a vote.
Alana would like to speak.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Alana.
I'm still, I hate to say that, I'm still not sure what we're doing at the end. If people don't like it, then what are we doing? That's not in the motion. Do we need that in the motion? Because I started off thinking we should take time to give the community input, and as I hear more, there has been a lot of opportunity. I don't want to get to the end of this and start again at zero. And I really understand what Councillor Barlick is saying about the other opportunities, especially with all the development we're doing in Jim Creek Park. I think we need to be really clear here on what it is we're actually voting on. Because if a group says no, and we don't capture anybody who previously said yes, what have we done?
Thank you, Councillor Miro. So I guess, Paul, I'll go to you. It is your motion if you'd like to speak to it.
So I understand where Elena or Councillor Moreau is coming from, and Councillor Bartlett. I get it. What I would like to know is the information first before we do anything else. We can make a decision when we get the information back. What do we do moving forward from here? All I want to know is, are we representing our constituents properly? That is it. I don't need to know what we do if the answer comes back no, or the answer comes back yes. It's simple, we move forward. But if it comes back no, it warrants another discussion at the table prior to A, moving forward, or B, asking Fathom to change the design in some way that is more pleasing to that group of people. There are ways of doing this, but quite frankly, I just want to know that if it is a small, slim majority of the constituents that have reached out to myself and Councillor Slotky, or is it the vast majority of Inuvik that doesn't like this sign? That is what I want to know.
So do we have a way to get a better graphic out there? Because I would have to agree with what's been said, that what you see presented in the media is not what we understood it's actually looking like. And honestly, those silhouetted people threw me off. I thought they were part of the design. I think other people did too. So can we get a better graphic so people know what it is they're agreeing with or not agreeing with, if we go this route?
So in the document that I sent out, the FAQ document, there are 4 graphics included in there that give basically morning, northern lights, dusk, and kind of a cloudy day view of what the sign would look like. Until we have an actual sign, I don't think there's a much better option than what we've been given at this time. Of course, if there is, and I've misspoken, then please correct me. But I mean, it's a design graphic at this point. So how we improve upon that, I'm not sure. I mean, we can ask for a new graphic from the company, but again, it's still going to be a graphic design. It's not an actual sign at this point, right? So
that's fair. Yeah. That's fair.
All right. So if we don't have anything further, I will call it to a vote. So all in favor of the motion to pause the Tourism Gateway project for 2 weeks to reach out to residents in a straw poll on whether or not they like the current design of the sign. So all in favor, Paul, Ray, Des, and all opposed, Clarence.
Very
yeah. Alana is.
Alana. And Kurt, are you able to unmute yourself? It's the opposed have it 4-3 at this point. So the motion is defeated. Thank you, everybody. With that, Councillor Slotky.
I would just like to say I really appreciate this discussion. I know that it's hard for us because we do have very differing opinions here on how this should go, but I do think these discussions are important to be having. So I really appreciate everyone's input, and I think it's good that we're doing this. And I'm disappointed that we're not going to hear more from the community, but at least we're having these discussions to see where we all stand, and maybe we are representing everybody a little more clearly by going through this process. So thank you guys for this.
I think we'll hear more from a portion of the community, irrespective of this decision.
Great. All right, thank you. So with that, was there anything further on the action items list? And I'm seeing none. We have completed our motion. Department head reports. So I will read the motion and then we will go through the reports. So recommendation is that Inuvik Town Council hereby adopts the following staff reports as presented. The Public Services Report, 10.2 Planning and Development Report, 10.3 the Economic Development and Tourism Report, 10.4 the Community Services Report, 10.5 the Senior Administrative Officers Report, and 10.6 the Protective Services Report. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Slotky, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any questions or comments on the public services report? Seeing none. The planning and development report. Economic development and tourism report. Community services report. The SAO's report, or the protective services report. All right, seeing none, I will call it to a vote. All in favor?
Yes.
So moved, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Gary. Lastly, under information items, we have the strategic priorities chart, which I will be sending out this week to you with my email on Friday. Were there any new additions under council concerns this evening? I'm seeing none. We do not have in camera tonight, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Loreen. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a